How do you respond when they start calling you a narcissist? First of all, it's a tactic, a common tactic to deflect, to manipulate you, because they know that it's the one thing that's going to drive you crazy, right? It's the one thing that is going to be like, what are you talking about? Because you're going to be the like, I've given you everything. I've poured my soul into you. I've literally done it. How can you call me this? My whole life has been you, right? That is how they bait you, they trigger you, and then you're sucked down, dragged down in it. Don't go there. Don't go there. So, the first thing I'm going to say to you is, first of all, I always say I always wear jade. I'm half Chinese. You remember I always wear jade, but never jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Never go there. You just stay calm, stay composed. When they try to suck you into they go fishing, they go and then you're in it, you're down there. The first phrase that I'm going to say to you is, I hear you. I get it. I'm hearing what you're saying. You don't have to respond. You don't have to say anything. You can just say, I hear you. I don't agree, but let's focus on the issues. I hear what you're saying. I don't agree, but let's focus on the issues at hand. Just stay calm, stay composed. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to push your buttons. I've had this happen in all sorts of situations, in all sorts of scenarios, personal situations, professional situations. I've had other attorneys call me this. I mean, in a mediation, I've had opposing counsel, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to bait you. They're trying to goad you. You just have to put that invisible shield down around you and just, okay, I hear what you're saying. Be like Teflon. It just rolls right off of you because you just know what they're trying to do. They're trying to bait you. They're trying to trigger you. Look at them as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. Toddlers say, I hate you. Okay, I hear you. I get it. I don't agree with what you're saying, but all right, let's focus on the issues at hand. Stay calm, stay composed. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. The second thing is you're going to just reflect on the accusation and then ask for specifics from them. So you can just say, oh, really? That's interesting that you say that. I always say, like, instead of getting angry, get curious. Can you give me specifics? Instead of like getting angry, I can just say, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Oh, that's interesting. What makes you think that? And then they can get more and more, but you just get more like you're just sort of like Inspector Clouseau, like, oh, that's interesting. Because you're just sort of like reflecting, you're just getting curious because it forces them to see that there's a lack of evidence. They'll start to say things like, oh, I had to do this because you're the narcissist, or here's all the way. There's really no backup. There's never any evidence to support the things that they say. That's the second way that you can respond. The third thing that you definitely need to do is set boundaries. And it's so crucial that you do this. One of the things that you definitely need to do always right at the beginning, I always say step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. So step 1 is just start with establishing a barrier of respect where no matter what situation you're in, no matter what's going on, you just say, things like, I'm not comfortable with this. This approach isn't working for me. Thanks for the feedback. Things like that, where you're just establishing a boundary where this conversation is not going to happen like this, whether it's a family dispute or a professional dispute or a workplace conflict. I mean, I've been in family situations where I've had to say, listen, we can continue this conversation when it's going to be a respectful conversation. And I've been in workplace conflicts as well, where a client was being unfairly attacked, even in the middle of a deposition. where I've had to say, we will discontinue this deposition and we'll continue it when the conversation can be respectful. I'm not going to be comfortable with this, and neither is my client. You've got to set boundaries. You don't get your goals, you get your standards. You've got to redirect conversation to a place that is your standard. Be firm, yet respectful when you set your boundaries. And then that prevents the conversation from spiraling into an unproductive place. If you need more support, by the way, join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. I know that you've been dealing with this, so I know how hard it is. And if you agree with me and this is helpful so far, put a for sure in the comments below, for sure. And if you need more help in dealing with narcissists and you need more phrases, get my free phrases for disarming narcissists at disarmthenarc.com. So the next thing is facts and logic. Using facts and logic can really, really help dismantle those false accusations. And they call you a narcissist, they call you all sorts of things, and you approach with truth and it dismisses that emotional manipulation. Like, I've always acted in your best interest. Can you point out specifics where you think otherwise? In a legal case, I've said things like, hey, here are the detailed records. Here are the ways that my client has acted in the best interest. Here are the summaries. Here are the records. Here is the supporting documentation. You list out the instances. You stay in the facts. You stay away from things like always. Stay away from things like never. You stay in the facts. You stay calm. You ask for facts and logical reasoning instead of going into craziness. Always, you never stay in the facts. Point out exact. Points to specifics. Can you give me specifics, please? Stay in facts and logic. And the last one is redirecting the conversation. Now, narcissists are really, really good at this now, aren't they? But you redirect the conversation back to what's productive, back to what's focused. And this is something that I really help people do in my SLAY program and in my high conflict negotiation certification program as well. I give email templates and things like that. Don't get sidetracked by accusations. So what can you do? What can you say? Let's address the real issue here. Let's get focused back on what we can do to be productive. Let's stay away from emotional conversations. Let's go back to what we can do to resolve this. Instead of, being accused of emotional things or getting personal, what can we do to support each other moving forward? That sort of thing. I know we both want to resolve this. What can we do to do that? Redirect the conversation back to what can we do to mutually have a beneficial agreement here? What can we do to avoid unproductive conflict? Those are the ways that you can redirect conversation and stay goal oriented and focus on solutions rather than accusations. Use we language instead of you language, or I want, or you are this, because that is also really, really helpful as well. So those are 5 ways that you can respond when somebody calls you the narcissist. Which one was your favorite? I would love to know in the comments. And I'd love to know how you've had to deal with this in the past as well. Put that in the comments. Remember, stay calm, stay composed, reflect the accusation, set your boundaries, facts and logic, and redirect your conversation. You have the power to assert yourself confidently and handle these conversations with strength, with grace. First thing that you are going to want to do is think about your triggers. I'm going to give you your phrases, but you want to also think about your triggers. You're going to want to think about, how does it make you feel when these people are making you upset, right? If you're feeling like they're getting you upset and your breath is quickening and you're getting out of sorts, right? What do you want to do? You want to like stop. You want to pause. All right. So that's the first thing that I'm going to say to you is just pause. And that's actually an acronym that I want you to just have in your at the ready is pause. All right. So just P is the first part of the pause. And so pause and breathe. It's just take a moment to pause and breathe because that's going to help you when you have that emotional reaction to somebody in that situation. All right, so just take a moment to pause and breathe so that when somebody is coming at you in a toxic situation and instead of going right at them with anger or something, just go, wait a minute, let me pause and let me just think of it as in a curious situation and just say, wait a minute, I'm curious. I'm curious. Tell me more. All right. So take a pause. And that first magic phrase that you're going to say to them is, I'm curious. I'm curious. Tell me more. Because whenever you can take a pause, instead of reacting with anger, you can react with curiosity. That will help you. I'm going to give you an acronym, which here is pause, but I'm also going to tell you to react with curiosity instead of anger. Take a pause, manage your emotional triggers, and also react with curiosity instead of anger. Pause stands for PAUSE. The first letter is P, and that stands for pause. Pause and breathe. Take a moment to breathe and prevent that impulsive reaction that you might have. And then the A stands for acknowledge. Acknowledge your feelings. Again, you can, instead of anger, you can just like acknowledge your feelings, identify and accept the emotion that you might be experiencing. Because when you're dealing with somebody who's coming at you, they might be toxic, they might be making you feel defensive, then you can be like, wait a minute, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to take a breath because anytime that you can do that, then you don't give them that moment to be baited, right? Because anytime that somebody can bait you, then they are going to have that upper hand. Because whenever you get into that emotional quagmire, then they're going to have that upper hand on you. So anytime that you can react with curiosity instead of anger, then they're no longer going to have that upper hand. So that's why I'm saying to you to take that pause. You is use rational thought. Challenge your immediate thoughts and rely on factual reasoning. So remember, you're going to say to them, I'm curious. Tell me more. I'm curious. Tell me more about what it is that you're thinking. Because if you say something that's going to react in anger, then that person now has the best of you. I always say they go fishing and then they go baiting, and then now you're down in the mud with them. And then S stands for shift. Shift your focus. Shift your focus from your standard responses. Ground yourself into neutral phrases. That's what we're talking about here today. Neutral phrases to manage your interactions so that you're managing your interactions with them. I'm curious. Tell me more. What is it that you're saying to me? I'm curious. Tell me more. And then E is excuse yourself if needed. Step away momentarily if it's too emotional, if the response is too overwhelming. So the first thing that I'm telling you is take a pause. Take a pause to manage your emotional triggers and use curiosity instead of anger. So anytime that you can respond to somebody with curiosity instead of anger, you're going to be much better served. You're taking that pause. So the very first phrase is, I'm curious, tell me more, because you're using curiosity instead of anger. But I'm also telling you to take that pause, and pause stands for what I just told you that it stands for. Does everybody get it? All right, so take a pause, and I want you to put that in the comments below. Take a pause. I already gave you one magic phrase to respond to anyone in any kind of situation, no matter what it is, so that you have that toxic situation happening, you've got a phrase. But remember, you're taking a step back. You're the one who's now in control. All right. And remember, the E is excuse yourself if needed. You can always excuse yourself if you need to. The next one, phrase number 2, is that's interesting. Why would you say that? Again, it's more like curiosity instead of anger. That's interesting. Why would you say that? You're not reacting with anger. And the other reason why I suggest that you use a phrase like this, especially if you're negotiating with somebody like this, and as an attorney, I tell you this, especially in a negotiation situation, is that you're always wanting to know more about what the other person is thinking. And if you can get it where you can dig into more about what the other person is thinking, then you can actually start to learn more about how you can get the upper hand on them. And I know a lot of times you're sitting there thinking, I don't want to know what they're thinking. I don't want to know anything about them. But the answer is no, that's not true. You always want to know more about what the other side is thinking. You always want to gain more information because information is power, information is leverage. So you always want to know more psychologically about what the other side is thinking because you can always use that against them. That becomes something that you can use down the road. And especially if you want to make the other side feel like they're being seen, heard, and validated. And when you're dealing with a toxic person always wants to feel seen, heard, and validated. Oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? That gives you the upper hand once again. And then once again, take a pause. How do you manage your emotional triggers? You take a pause and breathe, acknowledge your feelings, use rational thought, shift your focus to standard responses, excuse yourself if needed. And then, that's interesting. Why would you say that? 2 phrases that you can use so far. I'm curious, tell me more. And then the second one, that's interesting. Why would you say that? The third one, that's interesting feedback. Now, once again, you're like actually telling them, oh, I like your feedback. Thank you. What makes you think that? Especially if the person just put you down. They think that they put you down. Okay, great. That's interesting feedback. What makes you think that? Dig into why do they think that about you? Let them explain. Instead of going, what? Actually let them go into it. Let them tell you their side. Let them give you their arguments. Let them give away their side of the story while you sit there and take notes. Just take a pause. Don't feel the need to defend yourself. I always say never jade, even though I love jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain, because you're going to take a pause. Use this opportunity to gain information, gain knowledge. You're collecting. So I'm curious. Tell me more. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's interesting feedback. What makes you think that? You got to take your ego out of this thing. Check your ego at the door. Just do some information gathering over here. You're just pretending like you're reporting the news over here. So that's 3 out of 4 so far. Never give away your leverage, by the way. And you just keep your emotions out of this thing. You're just looking at things factually. And you can't take things personally, especially when you're dealing with somebody who's toxic. Because when you're dealing with somebody who's toxic, you're not dealing with rational. You're not dealing with reasonable. You're never going to get them to see your side. You're never going to get closure. So you might as well just kind of look at it as a game. So the final thing is, that's an interesting perspective. Why would you ask that? So I'm curious. Tell me more. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's an interesting feedback. What makes you think that? That's an interesting perspective. Why would you ask that? And just put it back on them. Don't allow them to let them see you sweat. Don't allow them to make you think that you're upset, because you keep hanging around in the conversation upset not upset, not triggered, and not emotional, you might actually gather some information. Now, it's not an easy thing to do, right? So if you're finding yourself triggered, if you're finding yourself upset, if you're finding yourself defensive, or any of those other things, you got to take yourself out of the conversation. You can't continue to be in the conversation. I do recommend phrases for disarming narcissists. If you need them, you can go to disarmthenarc.com and get my phrases for disarming narcissists. I highly recommend those if you need them. If you need them, they work great for emails, texts, all sorts of things. Disarmthenarc.com. They're totally free. And my free private Facebook group is also a great source of support, which you can go to, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Definitely check that out for sure. That will help you. And so go to my free private Facebook group for support, disarmthenarc.com for free phrases for disarming narcissists. Get the help and support that you need in the areas that you can get them. I'm curious, tell me more. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's interesting feedback. What makes you think that? That's an interesting perspective. Why would you ask that? So 4 phrases, 4 magic power phrases to respond to anyone in any situation, no matter how toxic, no matter how angry, no matter how they are, but you got to take a pause and you got to make sure you're managing your emotional triggers, and you have to make sure that you're responding with curiosity instead of anger.
Fed up with narcissists walking all over you? Sick of everyone believing their lies while you're paying through the nose in attorney's fees? What if you could hold all the cards for a change? Hey, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm a top 1% trial attorney, a USA Today bestselling author, and I've spent my entire career helping people slay narcissists in negotiations, most recently through my proven slay method. What if your suffering could become your superpower? Imagine turning all that pain into power, not just for you, but for others too. This is your chance to take back control. You can finally win. Become a high conflict negotiation certified coach. Help others while transforming your own life, and do good for the world. This is your chance. Go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I'll show you how to turn the tables for good starting today.
I mean, the types of false allegations or accusations when you're dealing with narcissists are really endless. I mean, completely infinite. And honestly, the funny thing is they will contradict themselves over and over and over again. That's the thing that's really interesting and also very, very helpful for you, because this is where you can start building your leverage. And this is where my slay methodology will very, very much help you. Strategy, leverage, anticipate where they're going to go, be 2 steps ahead of them, and focus on you, your case, and your position. That's what the slay methodology is. And it will very much help you, because they are liars. And you know what judges hate more than anything? They hate liars. And narcissists are lazy. They're also very, very lazy. They also ignore court orders. And judges hate lazy liars who ignore court orders. And narcissists are all of those things. And I'll tell you that at the end of the day, if you are just diligent in keeping track of these things, you really will be able to catch them. And so the thing that you have to remember is to just keep your wits about you and remember who you're dealing with, and not allow them to get the best of you. Understand who it is that you're dealing with. And every time they do one of those things that they do, just say, thank you very much. You just gave me something else. Understand that what it is that you're building. You have to play a little bit of the long game. All right. So I'm going to give you 6 ways to deal with the narcissist false allegations, but just understand that yes, they do this. Yes, they're trying to trigger you. Yes, they're trying to get you to look like the crazy one. That's why they do it. They want you to be triggered, number one, because they get supply from it. Number two, they want you to look like the crazy one. So when you get sucked into that mud and you react, they go, oh, look, you're the crazy one. And you took that bait, hook, line, and sinker. They use your reaction against you. And there you go. Don't get sucked into it. So that's number two. And then number three, as long as you are giving them that supply, as long as they catch that fish, they will never leave you alone because you are giving them that supply. So you don't want to go into it because of that as well. All right, 6 ways to deal with the narcissist's false allegations. Number one, you can respond. Do not react. Do not react. And I know you know that that was where I was going, right? You know, it's like they got the fish. Do not give them that. Unless you want to be that fish that they've reeled in, don't be that for them. You know, you can respond. Do not react. Just picture yourself. You're that fish that they've reeled in. Okay, don't be that. So that's one way to deal with the narcissist false allegations. Number two, make sure to document. And in my SLAY program, I have the 12 areas that you should be documenting. I have a whole chart on that, and I have a whole module on this, but make sure that you are being very, very diligent on how you are documenting, and do it in real time. Please do yourself a favor and do it in real time. It is so hard to go back and try to recreate, oh, what was that? What day was that? And they give you so much material. They really do. I remember a case one time where, you know, the wife threw the son, it was like a 14-year-old son, threw him out of the house at, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning. Just she had a big fight with the son. It's like in the middle of December. It was like cold out. His husband had to go pick up the son, and she sends the husband an email saying, yeah, it's probably better if we take some time apart from each other. You should call the school bus service and have the bus start picking him up at your house, you know, for now. And then the next thing you know, the lawyer gets a motion saying that husband has been withholding son from wife and all of this stuff, when there's an email out there that says, you know, you should call the bus service. I mean, it's like mind-blowing, you know, but this is the kind of thing that they do. So that's why you document. You keep it in a file. You know, you just have all this stuff, you have it ready to go so that you don't have to go back. You don't have to go look for all this stuff. What day was that? You know what I'm saying? Keep track of it in real time. And I have a whole other video, by the way, on how to keep your cool against narcissists. Definitely check that out too. So that's number two. Number three is don't get sucked into the mud. Do not get sucked into the mud. Start looking at it as if you're a third party. You know, try starting to look at it as if you're an observer. I have a video where I was interviewing Judge Lynn Toller from television's divorce court, and she talked about that too, where you just start looking at it as if you're looking at something happening. Oh, I see that you're upset. Oh, I see that, you know, you are unhappy about something. You want to tell me more about that? You know, because you have to understand that these are people who are just deeply unhappy, and that's what you're dealing with. So, you know, don't be surprised when they act like themselves. Be surprised if they act normal. Okay, so that's number three way to deal with a narcissist false allegations. And then number four, is become like Teflon when it comes to those guilt trips. They're going to try to guilt you into things a lot of times. That's another way that they try to suck you in to this thing. One way, of course, is they try to trigger you by getting you angry or saying things. But another way is they try to guilt you into it. Oh, I thought maybe you might want to take care of your family, or I thought that you were a better mother than that, but I guess not. Something like that. Don't go for the guilt thing either. Become like Teflon. Stand in your power. What's right. Just remember, keep your focus on what to be fair, what to be what's right, what to be what's equitable. Don't allow their manipulation to get inside your head anymore, because a lot of times the voices inside your head, especially if you've been with this person for a long time, are their voices and not your voices, and not the voices of what's reality or what's your own voice. And that's why, you've got to create these boundaries, and you've got to start staying away from them and keeping your interactions as brief and unemotional as possible, and just not allowing them to penetrate your space. So don't allow them to penetrate. Okay, so that's number 4. And by the way, if you agree with me so far on all of this, give me a spot on in the comments. Just say spot on so far. And number 5 is use one method for communications. And again, this is your way of not allowing yourself to be attacked from 50 different directions, right? So you're going to use one method for communication, and it really should be just email or an app. If you have children, you can use an app. Again, they may try to goad you. They may try to say, oh, why do you have to be so rigid? We can talk in different directions. We can talk. How come we can't, just meet somewhere or whatever, especially because, they're going to try to push the boundaries, push the different directions. Just don't do that. Don't engage. Just say, no, we're going to use one form, and it's going to be email. And if you have kids, an app is great. And I do recommend especially having it turned into a court order, because that way, if they don't use the app, you can file a motion for contempt or whatever, because they're going to push the envelope, and you need to start to heal, and you need to start having time away, because that's where you'll start to be able to move away from this whole situation. Okay. So that's the 5th way that you get to deal with a narcissist false allegations. One method for communication that can be tracked. And finally, the last way is try not to ever be alone with the narcissist, because they'll say things. I mean, I had a client one time who they did the exchange and with the child. And then after they did the exchange with the child, the husband wrote in the app, thanks for agreeing to switch weekends next weekend. I really appreciate that. That conversation never even took place. I mean, it was wild stuff, but that's what they do. That wasn't a false allegation. It was just a false conversation, but that's what they do. It's like a wild odyssey when it comes to dealing with narcissists. So, really try not to be alone with the narcissist if you can. Try to do your exchanges in front of other people if possible. I recommend parallel parenting plans when you're dealing with narcissists, meaning, you just try to have as little interaction as possible. Do your exchanges at schools, meaning drop off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon. Just try not to ever have to see each other do all of your interaction through the app. I mean, as far as the communication goes. So those are 6 ways that you can deal with a narcissist, false allegations. Basically, you're just trying to make sure that there's always a way that you can prove things. And as I said, there are always ways that you can beat narcissists in court. It's actually very easy to beat narcissists in court. Today, I'm going to give you 6 ways to the path, the step-by-step guidance to take ultimate revenge on narcissists. You don't want to fight or argue with narcissists. You're going to do this instead, because if you fight or argue with them, they're going to fight or argue back. You know how you push against something, you push back against you. And when you're doing that, they actually enjoy it. That's what they want you to do. That's exactly what they want. They're like, hey, now we're having a conversation. Now you're giving me what I want. You're giving them food, lifeblood, oxygen. That does not give them revenge. So, my SLAY methodology has actually helped people break free. It's strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you. And so those are the things that you're going to want to be able to do. I always tell people, step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. And step 3, break free, because you're really kind of shifting the dynamic. You're shifting the power dynamic, because what's happened is they started off love bombing you. They started off, conditioning. That's what love bombing really is. It's really a misnomer, because they really are conditioning you from the beginning to see, are they going to be a good source of supply for me? So what you want to do is you want to stop that conditioning. So step 1, don't run. Stop that conditioning. Stop the bleeding. So you don't argue or fight with them anymore, because they're going to always be right and you're going to always be wrong. Right now, you're in this constant losing battle. You're never going to convince them that what your position is correct. You're never going to get them to go, oh, you know what? You have a point there. You're never going to get them to come to that kind of thinking. You're never going to get them to acknowledge you, even if it was a business relationship, because I was in a business relationship with a narcissist. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I contributed so much to this situation, so much to this relationship, or so much. How do they not see that? They're not. And if you think that you're going to give a lot in the negotiations at the beginning, and that's going to garner some sort of favor, and they're going to see how fair you're being and acknowledge that in some way, they won't. The faulty premise that people go into these situations with is that you try to overlay reason to a person who's unable to see reason. They just literally are unable. So if you really want to take the ultimate revenge on a narcissist, don't fight back. Don't try to argue. It just makes them more aggressive. Number 2 is you need to set boundaries. You need to stick to them. And that's going to be really, really hard, because they don't want you to stick to your boundaries. They want to maintain control, because you are a source of narcissistic supply for them. So you're going to need some ways to disarm that narcissist. So I have a free resource for you. It's my free 15 key phrases to disarm narcissists. I would go grab that now. You can get that at disarmthenarc.com. Just go to disarmthenarc.com. It's a free resource for you. You can use that to write emails, write text messages when you're speaking to them, if you're responding, because they're going to light you up like a Christmas tree with all of their flooding, trying to get that supply source back under control. But that's okay, because it's like a 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor. You just have to realize that that's what's going on, and you're just going to observe it. So that goes into my number 3. So number 3 is don't give them the attention that they crave. Don't give them that satisfaction of knowing that they've upset you. Ignore them as much as possible. Kind of got to be like, la, 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 la. Just look at the floor. Look, have other things that you're going to be prepared to do, to look at, write the book that you've always wanted to write, start your new projects, move on, have other things that you can start to pivot to, because you're just going to want to know that you've got other things that you're going to start to think about, because you do not want to fall into the trap of giving them the satisfaction of knowing that they've upset you. You want to ignore them as much as possible. Once you've set those boundaries, you need to stick to them no matter how hard it is. And there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, obviously, if you go give them that attention again, you're back into the cycle, you're back into it. And they know there's that supply source. And as long as they know that they can get that supply source, they're never going to leave you alone. They're also going to try to bait you into doing certain things, try to upset you, try to get a reaction out of you. And if they do that, they're going to use that reaction against you, and you're never going to be able to heal. As long as you keep exposing yourself to that toxicity, you're never going to be able to heal. So number 4 is, you have to start taking time for yourself. And then that really is how you start to take ultimate revenge on a narcissist. Once you don't fight back, once you don't argue with them, that's really how you start taking the ultimate revenge on that narcissist. Because once you start to be happy, once you start to have your own life and you're not feeding them anymore, that's really what disempowers them. So start to make yourself happy, start to find your own interests, start to have your own source. You'll start to breathe, you'll start to realize you don't need this person anymore. So that's number 4. Number 5 is start documenting everything that narcissist does and says. Have a notes file in your phone, have some way that you can document in real time. And if you can start organizing it, even better. So, I like to organize it by the statute. If you think that there's going to be some sort of a legal case, figure out what statutes are going to be applying to your particular case and organize it by the elements of that statute. That's the best way to do it. But if you're not going to have a legal case, then find some other way to organize it. Summary of lies and inconsistent statements, summary of times that they didn't show up on time, summary of times they didn't pay the bill on time. Whatever it is, try to find some pattern of something where you're documenting everything the narcissist does and says, but whether it's the phone calls, whether it's the emails, whether it's the text messages, the faster you can figure out a way to have things organized, the better it's going to be for you. If you can figure out some way that you can find something by words, by keywords, even better. If you can create a timeline, that's even better. Some way that you can start organizing and documenting everything the narcissist does and says, it will make your life so much easier, because it will start to become voluminous, I promise you. And they will give you lots and lots of material, but this will become your leverage. So when you're doing your SLAY methodology, strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you, this will start to become your magic bullet leverage, which you will incorporate into your strategy, and it will definitely work for you, I promise. Number 6 is you are going to get support, and you're going to get support from a number of different ways. I want you to get support from people who have been through this before. I want you to get support from a network of friends. I want you to get support from a network of maybe family members. Seek professional help if possible. So if you don't have access to therapy, we do have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp. So you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. We do receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to services that you can trust.
We also have a Facebook group. I have a Facebook group that you can have access to, which is totally free, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And I also have an inner circle, which you are welcome to join, which is my slayinnercircle.com. And I want you to have access to the help and support that you need. It is so important for you to have a network of friends and family and professional resources that you can count on, that you know that you can trust, because you are going to need that, especially when you are dealing with narcissists. But that is how you take the ultimate revenge on narcissists. You do not fight or argue with them. Instead, you get revenge by doing these 6 things. Losing weight can be tough, and I know how frustrating it can be to feel like nothing is working. And that's why I'm so excited to offer something really special for you that's truly helping people. Hers. Right now, everyone's talking about weight loss medications like GLP-1s, but you don't need to be a celebrity to access them. Through Hers, you can get affordable, doctor-developed weight loss programs designed just for you, whether it's GLP-1 injections like the ones in Ozempic or Wegovy, or oral medication kits. Hers gives you the options to tailor everything right to your needs. What I love about Hers is that they make loss realistic and affordable, starting at just $199 a month with no hidden fees. Plus, you get the support of a medical provider to adjust your plan, answer questions along the way, all online and delivered right to your door. If you're ready for a weight loss solution that actually works, start your free online visit today at forhers.com/negotiate. That's forhers.com/negotiate for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. What is the best advice that you would give to someone who is dealing with a narcissist, who is, in a situation where they're just like thinking, I don't know how I'm ever going to get out of this thing? What would you say to them?
Um, my piece has a high price tag, and if I got to let go of some money to get some peace, I will do that. I will not let people walk over me, but I will not let that actual, the vase or whatever, the idea that I need to beat him or her. I need to beat the day, and I beat the day if I find some peace in it. And that, they're make them ancillary. It's hard to do, but your life is about your day. He or she is just a part of your day, and make them ancillary. It is a job. It is hard, but it is doable.
I like that. And what about boundaries? I just had that thought. Like, I teach people to like create boundaries. Emotionally, physically, whatever boundary type they need to create. What would you say to that?
Oh, I think it's absolutely necessary during this lockdown. I have boundaries. I'm not allowed to read emails after a certain time because it's not a good time today. I'm only allowed to consume a certain amount of news. I insert limits and boundaries on what I do so um I can be in charge of all of the incoming information, because between Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you get a lot of emotional incoming from all over, and people are emoting, and they're emoting to the world. And if you're consuming all of that, you're consuming other people's raw emotions, and you don't need to do. So you should limit yourself with respect to the exposure that you have to incoming uh, agitation and irritation.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I also teach people like, as far as like boundaries, sort of like tactical responses, such as if they get a long email that says, you're a deadbeat, you suck in every way, whatever. But there's like one piece in there that says, what time do you want to pick up Johnny on Wednesday? You could just like write back and say,
I'm in receipt of your email. I disagree with your allegations, and you can pick up Johnny at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. Like,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
engage.
and I think that's a very, very good idea, because if you don't buy into, they sent it for a reason. They didn't send it to convince you of that. They sent it to upset you. So if they wrote a 20-minute email, took 20 minutes to write a damning email, and then you come back with, yeah, you can pick them up at 9. That's a victory. You need to put that in the win column.
That is a victory. It is so true. I love that you put it like that.
Today, we are diving into a topic that is near and dear to my heart, negotiating your best life. It's the name of my podcast. It's the what I live and breathe, because sometimes I really feel like the very first negotiation that you have to do is with your own self, with your own mind, for your own self-worth in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, we all sometimes feel like life isn't fair and you don't get the life that you deserve, and you feel like you get taken advantage of. And it's time to stand in your authentic power, reclaim your power, set boundaries, and negotiate for the life that you deserve. So stick around if that describes you. This is going to be a transformative ride. If you've ever felt like you're constantly being taken advantage of, whether it's in your personal relationships, your personal life, you're not alone. Maybe it's your professional life. I know I have. And I've been a lawyer for a really long time, and I teach people how to negotiate, and it still happens to me sometimes, especially I think as women, but even if you're a guy and you're watching this, it happens because, you feel like you want to be the good person. You want to be the nice person. You sometimes think, you know what? Do I speak up? Do I not? Did that just actually happen to me? It happens. So I want to explore some practical strategies that you can employ to put an end to this pattern so that you can keep yourself empowered and stay in control of your life, not have these leaky boundaries. I call leaky boundaries, right? I want to make sure that you have power in your hands. All right. So the first step in stopping being taken advantage of, step number one, is recognizing the signs that you might be taken advantage of. So let's walk through some common behaviors that are situations where manipulation is often occurring, from subtle guilt trips to overt exploitation. Understanding these signs is critical in breaking free from the cycle. Let's look at some real life signs that are crystal clear. First of all, somebody is trying to make you feel guilty. It's Thanksgiving. You decide you want to go to somebody else's house on Thanksgiving, and a person is saying, no, oh, I'm going to be all alone, and I guess I'll just be here by myself. That is a sign of manipulation. That is a sign that somebody's trying to make you feel guilty. You need to do what you need to do for yourself. But even in a professional situation, I just literally had a conversation with one of my dearest friends. She owns a business. One of her employees was saying, how come you're not giving me more of a raise? This person just literally got a 20% raise last year. This person was saying to her, you don't value me. Obviously, you don't think highly enough of me. Trying to lay on the guilt trip. This person who I was talking to owns this company and was being made to feel guilty by this employee. That is something where she was going to be being taken advantage of because this employee is trying to make her feel guilty using guilt. I was saying to her, use a rubric. This is what it is to get a raise. You don't collapse whether or not I like you, whether or not I value you. I mean, I remember I had a situation where I had an employee who was saying the same kinds of things to me. Well, I have to use all my PTO because, my kids are sick. That's not really fair because nobody else has kids. And so they get to use their PTO for vacations. How is that my problem? Somebody is trying to make you feel guilty for something. That is a sign of manipulation. To overt exploitation, somebody's actually just using you.
Somebody's literally just every single time you're around them, they are having you give them rides or having you do something for them, and there's nothing in return. My husband and I started to realize that we had some friends that every single time we were around them, they were inviting themselves over to our house. They were inviting themselves to join birthday celebrations or whatever. They were never inviting themselves or inviting us over to their house. We've literally never even seen the inside of where they live. It's just a strange situation. It's just a using kind of overt exploitation situation. Where does manipulation occur? What's a using situation? How do you break that cycle? So those are some real life examples of where you might be being used. Those are sort of innocuous in some ways, but there can be some very much more toxic situations where you can actually be being manipulated and used in a much more toxic way. Somebody's making you spend money, somebody's making you pay for a lot of things, or even much more deep than that. Before we move forward, I want to engage with you, my incredible community. You guys, drop a comment below sharing any experiences you guys have had where you might feel like you've been taken advantage of, and let's create a supportive space for each other. Okay, I want you to check out my link below for some phrases to help you disarm narcissists. You can get that at disarmthenarc.com. You can use it almost like a toolkit to help you disarm narcissists. If you're dealing with a narcissist and you don't know what to say in emails and text messages, or even if you're having a conversation with a narcissist, you can use that to help you navigate conversations with narcissists. All right, so let's dive deeper into strategies to stop being taken advantage of with narcissists. The next thing that you can do is set boundaries. What I basically say to do is put a invisible shield down around you, and you just basically take these baby steps. I say step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. Because you're basically course correcting. You have to kind of almost turn the ship around 180 degrees, right? And so the first thing you do when you're setting a boundary is that step 1, don't run. And you're saying, I am no longer going to be retreating. I'm going to stay in place, and I'm putting this invisible shield down around me. I'm going to start looking at you as if you are a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. And I'm going to start observing your behavior to you. Just say, I can see that you're upset. I say, pretend like you're reporting the news. And then I say, never jade, even though I love jade. I say, never jade. You know what jade stands for? Never justify, argue, defend, or explain. So you're just going to pretend like you're reporting the news, and you just observe their behavior to them. Just the facts. So you can just say, no, I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry, but we can have this conversation later. Or you can say things like, this approach is not working for me. You're just setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is a really, really powerful tool in breaking the cycle of being taken advantage of. I just think it's really, really important for you to start healing, for you to start saying, I'm taking control. It's also like a mental thing. Like you are mentally making a choice to say, this is a line in the sand. Today I am making a decision that this is no longer going to be the way it was yesterday. And your boundaries are your fortress. It's you transforming your relationship with this person and with yourself, and you reclaiming your power. That boundary remains strong. And the next thing is the art of saying no. No is a really beautiful skill, and it can change your life. And really get comfortable with, it's okay if somebody is upset, because it really has nothing to do with you. Somebody else's triggers are not your responsibility. It's on them. Not everybody's going to like you. That's okay. What happens is we think that we don't want people to be mad at us, or we don't want people to be upset or whatever. But what happens is it's either going to be that we're going to be resentful and upset and angry with ourselves, or we think that we are delaying something. It doesn't end up well. It never ends up well when we try to go along to get along. It just doesn't. It always ends up worse in the long run. It just does. It's really better to just address it right away. Just get into the habit of the art of saying no. Not everybody's going to like you anyway. Your people are your people. Stop trying to make not your people your people. Learn the art of saying no. That skill will change your life, and be confident in it. Be confident in the art of saying no. It's not rejection, it's a declaration of self-worth. Embrace it, and it will transform your interactions. The next one is negotiating for fairness. Negotiation is a powerful tool, and it stops you from being taken advantage of. You just say, you know what? You're stepping into what you want. You do it in integrity, and you say, this is what I want. And you do it from a place of being really agnostic. You hold people to your word, you hold people to their word, and you say, this is what we agreed upon. And then after you have a verbal agreement, make sure you always follow it up with, even if it's a text message or an email or whatever, here's what we discussed. Here's what we agreed upon. I am confirming this conversation. Please confirm that this is what we agreed on, and get them to say, yes, this is what we agreed on. That way you have it in writing, because you want to make sure that there is something that says this is what was spoken about. It's a powerful tool from stopping others from taking advantage of you. Making that transition between summer and fall is always a crazy thing. And that's why I love having a leather jacket, like my gorgeous one from Quinn's. And they have timeless and high quality items, which I love. And they don't blow my budget, which I also love. They have cashmere sweaters and washable silk tops, and everything is like 50 to 80% less than other brands, which I also love. They cut out the middleman. They pass the savings on to us, which is also amazing. It's safe and ethical, which I also love. I really love my brown leather jacket from them. It's super stylish and it's high quality. Just love that. So make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/negotiate for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/negotiate to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/negotiate. All right, you're over there, you're going like, I don't know how to create boundaries. You want boundaries that will actually work. I want to help you make boundaries that'll actually work. I'm going to give you 5 ways. So you're going to want to watch all the way till the end so you get all 5. So number 1 is you got to stop explaining yourself. Once you create those boundaries, you want to try to tell them why you're creating boundaries. You want to say to them, well, I needed to do this because, and it's you're this and I that, and because that's when you leave yourself open. That's when they start to do that thing that they do, that Svengali thing that they do on you, and you can't go there with them. You can't leave yourself open. You can't listen to their crap because they know how to do that thing that they do with you. I'm sorry, but they've been conditioning you from the beginning. They know how to read you. They know how to trigger you. They know how to get under your skin. The first thing you have to do is, once you say, these are the boundaries, we're going to use one form of communication. That's it. You don't need to explain yourself or whatever your boundary is. You're going to pick the kids up at the curb, or you're going to, speak to me in a certain manner, whatever it is that your boundary is, then you don't need to explain yourself. That's it. This is my new rule. I don't need to tell you why. That's the new thing. So stop explaining yourself. That's number one. Number two is stop making yourself look vulnerable. Don't make yourself look weak by putting yourself out there, by saying, sorry, I had to do this. By making yourself look vulnerable, then that gives them that opening. When you make yourself look vulnerable, it gives them that opportunity to come in and pounce. So don't cry in front of them. Don't look weak in front of them. You can scream in front of your pillow, whatever it is, but don't lose control. Don't get emotional. Don't allow them to trigger you. Seriously, just don't. No emotion. Stick to the boundaries. So those are items 1 and 2. These are just things that you have to do in order for them to really start to respect you. And if you really want to know who a narcissist respects, I have a whole video on the only person a narcissist respects. I would definitely check out that video if you really want to know who a narcissist respects. And the next one is to stop looking for what I call attunement, or getting the narcissist to like agree with you, or to stop getting them to like see your side, or getting the narcissist to see why you're doing what you're doing, acknowledge you, and say, don't you see why this is going to work for us? Don't you see why this is better? Don't you see that this is going to be better all around for everybody? This is going to be best for both of us. If you're trying to get them to see reason, you're not understanding that they just don't think the same way that reasonable people think. Their brains just don't operate the same way. And the faster that you can get yourself to understand that, the faster that you'll be able to heal, the faster that you'll be able to protect yourself, the faster that you'll be able to move on, the faster that you'll be able to get to be on the offensive. There's so many things that'll work better for you once you understand that. Just don't expect attunement. Don't expect them to agree with you. So stop looking for agreement and acknowledgement. If you want a boundary that's going to work, just stop looking for that, because it's not going to happen. You're never going to get them to see your side. I want you to just put, I will stop now. I will stop now. I want you to put that in the comments, because that's your cue to yourself to understand that you're going to stop explaining yourself. You're going to stop looking vulnerable. You're going to stop looking to get them to see your side, all of those things right now. The next thing is that you're going to stop expecting them to change, because they're not. They're not going to suddenly get to be better people. They're not going to suddenly future fake you into, oh, I've changed, I'm better, it's going to be different now. It's not. You probably have heard it a million times. They're not going to change. All right. So if you want to have a boundary that's going to work, understand that they can't come back and say, oh, let me cross the boundary because this time it's going to be different. It's not. And number five, if you want to set a boundary that's going to work, stop excusing them. Stop excusing them. Stop excusing them because they had a bad childhood. It's not that bad all the time. These are what I call like red flags that you look past, that you should like look for in yourself, because you kind of defend them for them, then you make it easier for them in that sense, so because you're excusing them. And so if you want to have boundaries that work, stop excusing them. So those are the 5 things that you can do if you want to have boundaries that work. Stop explaining yourself. Stop making yourself look vulnerable and being emotional in front of them. Stop looking for attunement or agreement. Stop excusing them. Stop expecting them to change, and stop excusing them. All right. So, yes, you cannot get a narcissist to actually change their personality, but you can get them to change how they will deal and interact with you. And I'm going to give you 6 ways to get them to change in how they deal and interact with you in this video. So stay tuned and watch all the way to the end so that you can see what I mean. What I mean is they've been conditioning you from the beginning. You have been dealing with them. They've been love bombing you. Now, this is whether you're in a romantic relationship, a business relationship, even a family relationship. Even if you've known them forever, they condition you. They expect you to act in a certain way. So what you have to do is condition them back. You have to let them know, hey, this ain't how it's going to go anymore. There's a new game in town. Things are changing. Things are shifting. And the way that we've had a paradigm, the way things have gone before ain't the way it's going to be anymore. So you're going to have to change. And so you're basically reconditioning them back. And the way I explain it and the way I want you to understand this is that it's the same as if you are dealing with a toddler. The same as if you're dealing with a 2-year-old who's having a tantrum. When 2-year-olds have tantrums and they're conditioning their parents, basically, the parents see the 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor, right? And so for those of you who've had 2-year-olds, you know what I mean. What happens is the 2-year-old wants something. Let's say it's a bottle. And the 2-year-old is saying, I want that bottle. And the parents are going, nope, you don't get the bottle anymore. You have to use the sippy cup or whatever it is. The 2-year-old's like, I want the bottle. And so what happens is if the parents give in to that tantrum, then the next time the 2-year-old just goes, you know what? It worked last time. So next time I'm just going to scream louder. I'm just going to scream longer. I'm going to kick my heels. I'm going to flail my arms. I'm going to throw things. I'm going to become even more horrible. I'm going to make their lives miserable. I'm going to embarrass them in stores, whatever it is I need to do so that they will have to give in to me because I want that bottle. I want what I want right now. And then the parents go, oh my God, I can't take this. There's the bottle. And that's what's going on with narcissists. So until like those parents just go, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. The kid goes, you know what, apparently they're not giving in. I'm going to have to just give up on this. I'll just have to behave. I'll just have to, deal with it, take the sippy cup, and they finally just give up. But guess what? They're the worst right before they decide to give up. And that's what it is with narcissists as well. So you're basically, doing the same thing. You're reconditioning them. Do they change inherently? No, because they're not actually 2-year-olds. They're actually adults. But you are conditioning them to let them know there's a new game in town. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you these tips to let you know how to recondition them. Are you going to change them into loving people who have empathy, who now know how to care for people and become amazing human beings who
no, you're not actually changing the narcissist spots, but you're changing them into how they will, treat you, respect you, or they're going to just get out of your life. All right. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to give you 6 tips. Got it? Number 1, you're going to understand narcissism. You are going to start really getting into, that's why you're watching this channel. That's why you're reading the books. That's why you are getting all the knowledge that you possibly can, because honestly, the more you understand, the more you dig in, the more you really start powerfully understanding everything you can about narcissism, the different types of narcissism, the traits of narcissism, the traits of people that they target, you start to realize, hey, this ain't me. This is them. I can't take this personally. This is something that's, happens to people when they were young. And you start to realize, wow, this is something that, took place. And by the way, as I say all the time, narcissists didn't attach themselves to you because you had so little value. They attached themselves to you because you had so much value. They liked sources of supply that have a lot of value. That's why they liked you in the first place, even though they gaslit you into believing you had no value. Understand narcissism. That's number 1. Number 2, set those boundaries. I always say, step 1, don't run. Set boundaries. Obviously get away from them, but you're not running away. You're setting boundaries. The more you have fear, the more they smell it in the water. They're like sharks looking for that blood. And once they see that blood, they go for that. They go for that jugular. They know how to instill that in you. Set boundaries and stick to those boundaries. And then number 3 is, don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid to confront them. Don't be afraid of them. They respect people who aren't afraid of them. That's the only type of person that they actually respect. You can't have fear. I started to allude to that earlier, but as soon as you have fear, they read that, and then that gives them supply. Your fear actually feeds that. They get off on that. They get a high on that. That keeps them around. That keeps them coming back. They enjoy that. Most people don't want people to be afraid of them. That doesn't give them joy. It gives them joy. You don't want that. And the more you can say, I'm not afraid of this person. They're just a small little, they're actually more afraid of you than you are of them. And the more you can see that, the more you can uncover that, the more you peel back those onion layers and see that, the more you will understand that. So no fear. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. No fear. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid to confront them. Don't be afraid to assert yourself. Assert what's fair. Assert what's best for you. Number 4 is related to that, and that is hold them accountable. Hold them accountable for their behavior. If you're in litigation and they don't do something that they're supposed to do, they don't provide discovery that they're supposed to provide, file a motion to compel, they violate a court order, file a motion, let the court know, make the court enforce that court order, ask for sanctions if you need to, if that's something that's available for that. Ask for attorney's fees if you can. Whatever you can do it. Don't sit by and go, well, I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to, hurt them. The more you do that, the more they get away with things, and you're not holding them accountable. And then they think that they are, you know, still have some kind of power over you, some kind of control over you, and that's not okay. That's number 4. Number 5 is reward positive behavior. When they act the way you want them to, recognize that. Say, you know, great job, or I'm glad you're using the parenting app like you're supposed to, or whatever it is that they're supposed to do. They do like their ego stroked, you know, so if you fluff up their ego, it's a good thing. I know you don't want to do it, you know. I know you don't enjoy those kinds of things, but, you know, I always say fluff for favor, vomit later, you know, because it helps you to ethically manipulate the manipulator, and it helps you to get some things that you want down the road. If, you know, don't do it just to do it to get some things that you want, right? So reward positive behavior if it's going to help you. And then number 6 is the final thing, and that is to totally ignore when they are trying to bait you. This is so important. Probably the most important. This is something they totally get off on, is trying to bait you. And they will try to do this constantly in a myriad of different ways, probably infinite ways, thousands and thousands and thousands of ways. It will go on forever, as long as you allow it to. You know, I can't even name the number of different ways that they will continue to try to bait you. But, you know, and depending on the type of narcissist you're dealing with, the way they bait is also infinite as well. But, you know, they will constantly try to bait you. The more you can find yourself ignoring it, rising above, smiling through it, the better it will be for you, because, you know, that gives them narcissistic supply. It also gives them things that they can use against you as well. The more you react to it, remember, everything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit as well. So make sure that you don't give them any kind of things that they can use against you either, by the way. That doesn't help you at all. You know, I know it's really hard. I know it's extremely difficult, especially, you know, if you've been traumatized by them for years and years and years. Definitely get the help and support that you need. Let's talk about love bombs and truth bombs. So when you're getting love bombed, that means what happens at the beginning of a relationship where, you know, there's this outpouring of devotion, especially early in a relationship, or after a relationship conflict or something like that has happened. It can be the start of something, what feels like something wonderful, right? And what could be wrong with your partner laying it on so thick, right? I mean, isn't that part of a great relationship? So love bombing refers to these loving words, these actions and behaviors, but the problem is that they're being used as a manipulation, and they offer this attention and this loving and affection in an attempt to influence another person. And that's what love bombing is. So a narcissist love bombs in order to gain your trust. But once the bombing raid has ended, the affectionate behavior starts to dry up. So the love bomber at that point might become irritable. They start to dominate you. They start to not have boundaries. They might even start ghosting you. And if you want to know more about ghosting, you should definitely check out my video on silent treatment versus ghosting versus going no contact, because I give a whole
primer on what the difference is between those things. But, you know, love bombing is something that happens because they want your, they want control over you. So with love bombing, you know, they sometimes use it after the relationship starts as a methodology to get you to not see their poor behavior so that they could be excused from something, because they don't want to have to take responsibility for something. So they use love bombing sometimes in that way too. It's just, it's not constant, and it's really a manipulation. And when it's on, and it's great. But when it ends, it's awful. It's way worse. So they don't even necessarily believe their own professions of devotion and commitment and all of that. Their sincerity does not determine whether love bombing is taking place or not. Love bombing describes an imbalanced relationship. It's one in which the one person is the recipient of the love bombing, and the other person is, you know, actually just trying to manipulate the other person. It's not an equal partnership where you're both invested, you're both expressing love, it's a good give and take, and it's meaningful, and there's a real connection. That's not what's going on here. So a lot of times it feels like pressure, especially at the beginning of the relationship where they're trying to fast track it. And they might be pressuring at the beginning for exclusive dating or for moving in together or sexual stuff or whatever, but you know, they're trying to fast track that relationship in the beginning. So, and I actually have a whole video on love bombing as well, so you should definitely check out my video on love bombing. Okay, so when you want to respond to those love bombs, then what? What do? So the response is what we call a truth bomb. And a truth bomb is a fact spoken in a clear, easy to understand manner, without bias, without emotion. It's a piece of knowledge that when told to the listener, who happens to be the narcissist in this case, it's devastating to their argument and their view. So here are 7 truth bombs that are in response to love bombs. So, for example, if they say, I will never disappoint you again, I promise from now on, everything will be different. Your truth bomb is going to be, that sounds too good to be true. That's, you know, you're basically just saying, listen, that's a little too much. Nobody can be perfect. Nobody can respond with, I'll never do this ever again. Right? So you're saying it matter-of-factly, without emotion, without like smugness. Don't be sneering, because they'll definitely respond in anger to that. Just say, that sounds too good to be true. Okay? So the second one is, they say, you're so special to me. You know I didn't mean what I said. I wasn't myself. I won't take it out on you again. So then the truth bomb to that is, I've heard that promise before. Okay? So if you are so sick of being love bombed and you are so ready to just truth bomb from now on, give me a truth bomb in the comments. All right, so the next one is when the love bomber, when faced with the latest incident of not keeping his or her word, they'll say, it wasn't my fault because blank, whatever the excuse is. You can rely on me. I'll never let you down again. That's a future fake, by the way. So what you would say is, that is a promise that is impossible to keep, right? So the next one is when they're caught in a lie. So they'll say, I will never do that again. So what you want to say is, I will believe you when I see how you act. In other words, they don't necessarily always do what they say that they're going to do. So, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing you act in that way. Thank you. Okay, so then the next one is when they avoid taking responsibility for a problem. They might say, you mean everything to me, we're soulmates, remember, I don't even know what I would do without you in my life, I need you. You just want to respond and say, you know, that's really great, and I'm glad that you feel that way, and I look forward to seeing you do the things that you're supposed to do. Like, just bring it back to them. So another love bomb that you might get is, you know, somebody who just like is constantly absent all the time. You know, I'll let you know before I go anywhere. You will always know exactly where I am. And, you know, just say something like, okay, I look forward to you doing that. And thank you for saying what you're saying. And, you know, maybe even offer to have them put their money where their mouth is and say, all right, how about you allow me to have access to your location on your phone or something like that. See what they say about that. Okay. And another one is if they treat you with irritability or disdain, you know, and they might say something like, oh, you look so beautiful, you look so handsome, how did I get to be so lucky? Like, they're just trying to get you away from what it was that you're trying to hold them responsibility for. Just say, I acknowledge what you're saying and thank you for what you're saying. However, it takes away from the point of what it is that I'm trying to make. And you're making me feel like the things that I'm saying you're trying to make it like they didn't happen or they're not important. Did you mean for me to feel that way? Was that your intent? And it kind of like calls it back on them, because of course they're going to have to say, no, that's not what I meant. So these are just a few ways that you can come back. Just remember, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, sir. Never explain, justify, or overshare. Just, you know, respond to what it is that they are saying.